Hello and welcome to this session, and in this session we shall continue our understanding of the Python programming language. Well, you have already understood this program which was used to compute the area of the circle. You have also understood this program which was used to compute the simple interest. Well, through these programs, I'm sure you have indeed been able to understand quite a few aspects associated with the Python programming language. But then in this session, we are not going to be diving into any particular program. Rather, we will have to understand as to what really is a Python program made out of. What are the various components of a Python program? And through this, we shall extend the horizon of our understanding of Python as a programming language. So, let me proceed. Well, I have already told you that Python as a programming language is very similar to the English language. What I mean by this is that you know that in English we have something called as the character set. Well, if that's pretty complicated, let me tell you that the character set of English has characters from A to Z. Well, it is not only the uppercase A to Z. You know that in English we also have the lowercase A to Z as the character set. But then in English, not only do we have A to Z as the character set, we also have certain special symbols also as a part of the character set, such as the full stop, the comma, the exclamation mark, the question mark, the double quotes, the single quotes. This way, there are a lot of other special symbols as well, all of which together makes the character set of the English language. And let me tell you that even in case of Python as well, we have a certain character set. So what really is the character set of Python? Let me explain. Python's character set, similar to English, has all of the characters from A to Z. Yes, but then not only is the uppercase characters a part of the character set of Python, the corresponding lowercase characters also happen to be a part of the character set of Python. Well, not just this, the character set of Python also has the numerical values like this. Yes, not only the positive numerical values, even the negative numerical values also happen to be a part of the character set of Python. Well, not only that, numbers like these, which have a decimal point in them, also happen to be the character set of Python. And let me tell you that such numbers which have a decimal point in them is what we refer to as the real numbers. And all of these happen to be the character set of Python. But then, not only these, the symbols such as plus, minus, star, slash, double slash, modulo, and a host of all of these symbols also are considered to be the character set of Python. Well, that way, what is the role played by each of these symbols in Python is something that I shall be explaining in great detail moving forward. But at this point in time, what I wanted my learners to understand is that even all of these symbols as well happen to be a part of the character set of Python. Not only these operators, even the delimiters such as the simple parenthesis, the square parenthesis, the flower parenthesis, the colon, the comma, the dot, the semicolon, the at symbol, and that way there are a lot of characters that form the character set of Python. And again, let me tell you that we shall be delving deep into each of the characters in the character set of Python. But at this point in time, all that I wanted my learners to understand is that like how English has its own character set, even Python as well has its own character set. And what really is the role played by the character set? Well, let me tell you that in English, it is by making use of the character set that we create words. But then in Python, by making use of these character sets is what we create something called as the tokens. What really are the tokens in Python programming language is something that I shall be telling you moving forward. But then you know that in English, by making use of the words, we create sentences. Well, that way, in case of Python, by making use of the tokens, we create something called as the statements. Well, that way you have already created a lot of statements. Have a look at this program. This line over here is what we refer to as a statement. In fact, this line is also a statement. That way, all of these lines is what we technically refer to as the statements. But then let me take just one line from here. And this is definitely a statement. But then what is this statement really made up of? Here, total happens to be a token. Equal to also happens to be a token. SI is a token, plus is a token, P is a token, and through this I am sure my learners are able to understand that it is multiple tokens put together that forms a statement. Well, that way, if I'll have to be explaining a little more to you, then let me tell you that total happens to be such a token which we call as a variable or an identifier. equal to no doubt is a token, but it is not an identifier, rather it is an operator. SI happens to be a token, but then it is an identifier, but then plus is a token which is not an identifier, rather it is an operator. And by now I'm sure my learners know that P is such a token that we call as an identifier. Any which way, moving forward, I shall be explaining in great detail about tokens and the different types of tokens, but as of now, forget about what type of a token it is, but definitely through this, I'm sure my learners have been able to understand that it is multiple tokens put together that forms a statement. Hope I'm completely clear with this. Now that you are gradually understanding the analogy that I am providing between the English language and the Python programming language, let me tell you that in English, multiple sentences put together is what that forms a paragraph. Well, similarly, in case of Python, multiple statements put together is what that forms a function. Well, a function is also called as a method, and let me again tell you that moving forward, when I shall be discussing the topic of functions, I shall tell you everything that you need to know about it. But at this point in time, all that I wanted to say is that multiple statements put together is what that forms a function. Continuing on with the analogy, let me tell you that in English, multiple paragraphs put together is what that forms a chapter. And similarly, in case of Python, multiple functions or multiple methods put together is what that forms a program. And finally, let me tell you that in English, multiple chapters put together is what that forms a novel. Well, if in case some of my learners happen to be lovers of reading novels, then you would know that a novel is something that is going to be containing multiple chapters in it. A chapter in a novel contains multiple paragraphs in it. A paragraph is going to be containing multiple sentences in it, and a sentence is going to be containing multiple words in it, and every word you know is going to be created by making use of the character set in English. Well, I'm sure all of you have been able to understand this, and let me tell you that similarly in case of Python, multiple programs put together is what that actually creates a software. So what really is a software? Well, a software is nothing but a collection of programs. And what is a program? A program is nothing but a collection of functions or methods. And what really is a function? It is nothing but a collection of statements. And what really is a statement made up of? Well, it is made up of multiple tokens, and each of the token is actually created by making use of the character set of Python. So all said and done, I'm sure my learners through this analogy at a broad level have been able to understand the correlation between the English language and the Python programming language, but now it's time for me to dive deep and tell you more about these various aspects associated with Python. So let me proceed. Now that you have understood the analogy, let me tell you that words in English are considered to be the basic building blocks. Don't you think that if you will really understand all the words in English, then to that extent it shall be easy for you to create sentences, and through the sentences create the paragraphs, the chapter and the novel? So that way, if you'll ask me what is the basic building block in English, then definitely it is the words in English that act as the basic building block of the language. Well, that way, in case of Python, it is the tokens that act as the basic building blocks. The moment you understand everything that you need to understand about tokens, then to that extent it becomes easy for you to create the statements, create the functions, create the program, and then create a software itself. So that way, if you'll ask me as to what is the basic building block of the Python programming language, then let me tell you that it is the tokens that act as the basic building blocks. And also let me tell you that tokens are of multiple types. And if you'll ask me as to what are all the different types of tokens, then have a look at this statement again. Don't you know that total was a token, but then it was a token of the type called the identifier. So identifiers happen to be one of the types of tokens. Not only that, here equal to was also a token, but then it was of the type of operator. And that is why I say that operators also happen to be one of the types of tokens. So that way, if you'll ask me what are all the different types of tokens, then all of these happen to be the various types of tokens in Python. Anyway, I shall be taking up each one of these tokens in great detail and shall be explaining it to you. But at this point in time, what I really want you to understand is that Python does not contain just one type of token. Rather, these are the 5 different types of tokens that are there in the Python programming language. And now it's time for me to dive deep into each type and explain it to you in great detail. So let me proceed. Now that you have understood that we have 5 different types of tokens in Python, let me tell you that I will not be beginning my discussion of tokens with you from the keywords. I shall be taking up the keywords at a later point in time. I should also not be beginning my discussion with you on tokens even from the identifiers. That is also something that I shall be discussing with you moving forward. But then the first type of token that I would wish to discuss with you is the operators token. Yes, operators happen to be such important tokens in Python without which we cannot perform any computation. And that way, if you would ask me as to what are all the different types of operators that are supported by Python, then let me tell you that Python supports us with something called as the arithmetic operators, the logical operators, the bitwise operators, the comparison operators, the assignment operators, the identity operators, and the membership operators. All of these happen to be the various types of operators that are supported by Python, and let me tell you that the moment you have a good hold over the usage of all of these operators, that definitely your hold over the programming language shall enhance, and that you will be perfectly ready to face all the technical interview questions in your placement interview process. Also, let me tell you that all of these operators are categorized as arithmetic operators in Python. That way, these happen to be the various logical operators supported by Python, and these happen to be the various bitwise operators that are supported by Python. That way, these are all the comparison operators in Python. That way, all of these happen to be the various assignment operators that are supported by Python. Well, don't worry, I shall be taking up each operator and discussing it in great detail with you, but then proceeding ahead, these happen to be the various identity operators that are supported by Python, and finally, these happen to be the membership operators that are supported by Python. That way, there are so many operators, as you can notice, that Python as a language supports, and that is why it is considered to be a powerful programming language. How to make use of these operators, when to make use of these operators is something that we shall be discussing in my upcoming sessions. But then definitely I'm sure now my learners have been able to understand that in as far as the tokens are concerned, we have 5 different types of tokens, and amongst them what I have taken up first is the discussion on the operators, and that we have 7 categories of operators, and under each category we have various operators about which we definitely have to dive deep and understand. So all said and done, I'm sure that my learners in this session have been able to enhance their knowledge about Python programming language considerably. Yes, there are so many aspects that we need to dive deep and understand in great detail, but in this session, I'm sure you have been able to understand the various aspects associated with English as a language and Python as a programming language and the correlation between them. Definitely, in my upcoming sessions, I will be diving deeper into every single aspect, and let me assure you that by the end of this video series, you'll be an expert in this most important programming language. And if you'll really have to achieve that expertise, all that you really have to do is to continue watching this video series. I hope this session was informative. Thanks for watching. Let's meet again in my next session.